Okay, so good morning, everybody. This is our June 18th meeting. It's going to be our DOT roundtable. So there'll be a lot of good information here today from DOT. I know we had a lot of questions sent to us throughout the last couple months, and Jeff Corey is going to answer these questions for us. But moving forward, it's getting towards the end of the school year. I know we're all wrapping things up. We're going through bus cleaning right now, where the drivers are cleaning their buses out. We're inspecting them, making sure that they're at about 3/4 fuel, for the end of the year. That's where we keep ours. But our last meeting was held on May 14th, 2025. Roger Herod with Matthews Bus Sales presented on the Thomas EV bus. Any changes and updates since last year? And there was quite a few changes with the Thomas bus. The air system is in the back. They do have a master disconnect on there. They've increased their batteries to 244 kilowatts instead of the 226. So they're bigger, they're better, they last longer, which I think as we're moving forward with the EV stuff, I think that's going to be right across the board. I think battery technology is going to change a lot. They have they went over the different training levels of HV1, HV2, and HV3. They went over if the voltage drops below 11 volts. This is on the low voltage side. The high voltage side will not work and the bus will not start. So 11 volts, if you have a draw, that's going to be an issue. The bus sits for a while. Turn the batteries off. There is a disconnect switch for the batteries. So you know how we have our camera systems and lots of draws on these batteries. So if they sit for a while, it's going to drain that battery down. And if it gets just below 11 volts, the bus will not operate. So that's something to look into. It uses a Bendix IntelliPark system. It's standard. It's an electric switch. I know some of the other manufacturers are using that as well. He went over the operation of that. That meeting was recorded also, so if anybody wants to get more information on that and wasn't able to attend that meeting, it is on our channel, so feel free to review that one as well. They told us that it takes twice as much air to activate the drum brakes versus the disc brakes. So that's another reason they're using that, not just because of the weight, where before that was the main reason. It's still running the 650 volt AC motor. The range has been increased to 150 miles. The max road speed can be set on their bus from 45 miles an hour to 75 miles in 5-mile increments. So that's a new add-on for this year. So, and as we get going with this stuff, I mean, I know there's a lot of information on these EV buses, and with the EV mandate, we're still going to present, I'm thinking, each year on just the changes that each one of the manufacturers have with their buses, just to keep us up to par with our knowledge on it. Still, most of this stuff is under warranty and will be done by the dealer. That's the higher level of training, but I can see coming forward that we're all going to be trained in this. So while we're talking about the EV buses, does anybody that's operating the EV buses have anything to add to today's meeting? Any new stuff that you're finding out? Whether it's your chargers, software, any of that? Nothing yet. I know our chargers have been working well. We do have an issue with our software where it's showing that the chargers are coming on at, I want to say 4 in the morning, and we have them turning on at midnight. So the chargers are coming on at midnight, but the software is showing that they're coming on at 4 in the morning. Not that big of a deal, but it does reflect on our reports. So I know that they are working to fix that. Today's presenter will be Jeff Corey. He is a field operations manager for DOT. We also have Chad Smith. He's an ITS 2, and he works out of the main office. And we may have Nick Berard. He is also an ITS 1 and works out of the main office. So we should have some good information here today. I know that I did send them the questions, and there will be time for other questions if you guys have them. So go ahead, Jeff.
Good morning, everyone. So our setup for today's meeting is going to be a short PowerPoint presentation. After that, we will answer the questions that were sent in to Dan. We will have Chad at the end of the questions. He's going to go over reportable accidents. And also, there was a question on how to file appeals, which we do have a sequence of events to lead up for the appeals. And we do have a form that you fill out. And Chad will go through that at the end of our presentation. So right now, just a short changes that we're going to show. We're going to go through some of the out of service rates, violation trends. We do have some updated regulations. There was some questions on electric buses that we will touch in the PowerPoint, but we will also answer those in the question and answers. Using coach companies for your school districts. We always get a little bit of questions on that. Chad may chime into that one also because it involves authority. School activity buses, vans in school service, and the stop arm camera removal. This is for the stop arm runners and when you remove them, and also our DOT staffing levels. So just some of the out of service rates. Remember, our profile year runs from April 1 through March 31st of each fiscal year. This past year, 24-25, overall, there was 4.1% out of service. And school vehicles actually was a little lower, 3.9, and non-school was a 5.3. Some of the statewide top violations, this is for the whole state. First was exhaust leaks, and then operator name violations, and believe it or not, corrosion, which we're in the snow belt of New York, so we get a lot of corrosion. Capital region, I put this together because most of the audience today is out of the capital region. The number one was brake stopping distance. The B defects were seat belts, and then again, the exterior body corrosion. So we did have some new regulations that we updated through the policies and regulations. They were pretty small. They went into effect on 3/5 of this year. The first one, as anyone that knew our regulations, it referred to type A and A2 buses incorrectly. So as we all know, the type A is under 10,000 pounds gross, and A2 are 10,001 and above. So we actually fixed the 720.1 to show that. And also hold on. So also we had a 720.2 that removes a requirement for DOT to replace 2 of the out of service decals on the windshield. As you all know, when we implemented the highway prohibited decals back in, I want to say 2020, maybe 2021, we had to place 2 decals on the windshield. Now we actually changed our regulation to require, if it's a defect, you will get the one for a defect. If it's a AHP highway prohibited decal, you'll get a highway prohibited decal. If you have an A and an AHP defect, you'll get both decals installed on the windshield. Also, like I said, we talked about the typo A1 and A2 buses. The next one is 720.5B, red door lights. For years, we have allowed LED equivalent lights to be installed instead of a 2-inch light. It was never in the regulations, so we actually changed regulation, updated it to have the exact wording. Also, the 720.8 for school buses for the open door warning for the special service door, we're allowed to have the LED equivalent light. 720.11, the actual final federal motor vehicle safety standard label on the door jambs or the bulkhead of the buses. If that is now missing during the inspection, it's a defect. Chad will go into this one more when we do accident reporting, but 722.1, we changed the time frame to, it used to say immediately, and it was very vague, open to interpretations. Now we actually put a time frame of 12 hours from when the accident occurred. And we added disabling damage as a reporting criteria. Again, Chad will go into this a little bit more, but the disabling damages actually mirrors the federal regulation on accidents. So, electric school bus issues. Really, we haven't been finding many issues with electric vehicles. Some of the concerns that we have are the extra weight of the batteries. As we know, they're a little bit heavier. During the approval process of the floor plans, we checked the vehicle weight for meeting the gross weight at or below. And also, just like Dan knows, Shen was following up on tread wear for tires. And I know they had a good presentation by a tire manufacturer a few months ago, and they were working with Dan on tire wear. The question always comes up with thermal events on electric school buses. We have not seen many related to the actual batteries of the bus. We have had some auxiliary heaters, especially down on Long Island. They were caused by the auxiliary heaters. They shut them off for the summer. They actually turned off the coolant to them, and the heater tried to keep firing up to allow the heat to be, in the on position, and the heaters actually caught fire. So we did have some of those down on Long Island. I think there were 2 or 3 of them. And as we all know, the batteries are underneath the floors on the school buses, and that causes an issue as far as if there's a thermal event as far as extinguishing the batteries. Coach companies. So we all know that you hire coach companies for field trips or anything to do with outside transportation. Schools are asking, are they allowed to hire school or coach companies, which they are. The company must have New York State Operating Authority. The driver must have CDL license and a 19A certification. So DMV is involved on the 19A side. We're involved on the authority side. Also, if they're doing school trips, they must have our semi-annual inspection. And the question always came up, is the school responsible for checking the coach itself, the coach bus when it comes into the school? It's a good habit, but you're not required to do it. And we are cautioning not to sign off on any documents that the school inspected the bus and it was safe. So If you're doing that, you're bringing all the liability back to the school, which sometimes could not be a good thing. Activity buses. Everyone should know what an activity bus looks like. And what they are is a multifunction school activity bus. Their bus is used to transport students to and from school-related activities. They are not yellow. They do not have the flashing lights or the stop arms. The buses meet all of the federal standards for a school bus, except for what I mentioned above. And they are not used from home to school, school to home. They are used from point A to point B for school transportation between school buildings or other activities. Vans and school service. We're starting to see many of these pop up. And when I say vans and school service, I'm talking about full-size vans, 12 or 15 passenger vans that are made standard production. We have not changed our regulation on allowing full-size school vans. It's prohibited. We did update our regulation, I believe in 2022, 720.4, that vehicles that meet the definition of a school vehicle with a seating capacity more than 10, including the driver, may not be operated unless the vehicle was manufactured according to federal motor vehicle safety standards of a school bus. So basically, if you buy a standard production vehicle, you open the driver's door on the door jamb, the final federal label, it'll have a type. If it says bus, not school bus, it is not allowed to be used in school service, and we will not inspect it for that use. So the type must be an MPV, which indicates 10 or less, including the driver. And if there's any questions as we go through that, it's been a huge issue, and schools are purchasing these vehicles, they're putting them up for inspections. And again, our inspectors will turn it away. We will not inspect that vehicle for school use. Stop arm cameras. I'm not sure how many school buses in the Albany area has them, but throughout the state, different counties, especially the lower part of the state, they went to bus patrol or REI cameras to capture images of stop arm runners. Now the question is, we had a policy to install them, so we had to come up with a policy to have them removed from the vehicle and have the vehicle continue in school service. So basically all the harnesses have to be completely disconnected and removed from the electrical service bay of the bus. The exterior and interior cameras have to be removed. The holes have to be covered. Here it's showing the 20 gauge galvanized plates on the exterior, 22 on the interior. They have to be secured with epoxy and blind rivets. We actually, in this presentation, which I will send to Dan, we have decommission instructions that we worked with the camera manufacturers to put together. Again, it has both of the camera companies that we are aware of. And the question always comes up, we do allow plates to be riveted to the side of the buses to cover the holes. And I just want to mention, we have people calling saying, if we allow a plate to cover a hole, why can't we do it for rust? Rust is a whole different ball game than a hole that was drilled into secured metal. You know, the metal is not fatigued, it's not rusted. So we do allow the plates to be riveted on due to the hole being drilled. So we call that a manufactured hole compared to rust. And as we all know, DOT staffing levels, just like you guys finding mechanics, school bus drivers, any kind of help in the school service, we do have concerns that plague us all the time. Over the next 2 to 4 years, a third of our inspectors will be eligible to retire. So that's a huge portion of our MVIs currently. Right now, we're about 110 inspectors and 12 supervisors. And we do have difficulty hiring, just like the school districts. Any questions? I know I went through it pretty quick, but we'll answer any questions that we can. If we don't have the answer, we will research it and get back with Dan. So I guess that's pretty quiet.
Yeah.
May I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Am I still allowed to only have one signature on a DVIR? If a person drives a bus in the morning and then is relieved in the afternoon, it's still only one signature per DVIR, correct?
Well, you have a post-trip or a pre-trip and a post-trip.
With one signature.
You should have an area on the form for both places, pre and post.
Okay. My second question is, do you guys DOT out-of-state tour buses?
Normally, we do not unless they operate within New York State point A to point B.
Okay.
That coach operator would need interstate authority.
Okay.
But if they operate point A to point B in New York State, yes, we would.
Okay. So if a tour bus company pulls a couple more tour buses from another state, I'm okay as long as they have your diamond sticker on them.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, correct.
Thank you, sir.
And Chad, if I'm missing anything there, please chime in.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. So yeah, so long as that out-of-state company has New York State DOT authority, which can be checked on our website, and the inspection, then you're good to go.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, if there's no further questions on the PowerPoint, we'll go into the questions that Dan sent to us. Again, at the end of the questions, Chad will talk about reportable accidents and the appeal procedure, and we will send that information over to Dan and he can send it out to the whole group. One of the questions, what has been the common issues you've been finding on electric vehicles on the buses? Basically, we haven't been finding any issues during the inspection of the buses. The procedure remains the same of a combustion engine compared to the EV. So that I'm aware of, we haven't been finding any issues with the electric vehicles. And just to know, as of this morning, we have 229 electric vehicles in service for school buses in New York State. The next question, if a bus has an air leak from a valve, but it stops on its own during the inspection, does it still fail? That's a pretty open-ended question. It's hard to answer without knowing details of how what was going on. But if we could not verify it, or it doesn't happen again during that inspection, the inspector could make a note on the MC300 that the operator follow up that it did happen during the inspection and could not be duplicated. So that one I don't have a good answer without knowing exact details of what really is going on there.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
You said there's 229 electric buses in service in New York for this year?
Yes, currently right now.
Is that just school buses?
That is correct.
Okay.
229 school buses that are electric powered.
In New York, yeah.
The next one, how dirty does a bus have to be for the inspector to refuse to inspect the bus? For our defect code is a 2400 for cleanliness, which describes any unsanitary condition, which would be a B defect. The inspector really should not refuse to inspect a bus unless, and I will put it there, if there's a biohazard on the bus, or it's just completely, you can see there's mold on it or any unidentified liquids, sure, we're not going to inspect it. But we're not going to fail the bus. We're just going to refuse to inspect it. And that is a B defect. So the other caveat there, if the operator does not have privileges, and when I say privileges, if their profile is low enough and they're unsatisfactory, a B defect actually goes down as a failure. It doesn't count on the profile, but our MC300 will show any B or C defect as a failure. So again, the cleanliness is coded as a B.
But
Next question. Go ahead.
they can still operate the bus, right? Like it's not, doesn't get a sticker, even though their rating is low and they got a B, which goes down as a failure. Do they get a window sticker where it's out of service?
They do. Yes.
Okay, so it's just like an A failure then, if your
That is
rating is low enough.
That is correct. It does not count as a defect on your profile, but it's treated in the field, if you do not have privileges, it's treated as an A and you do not get a certificate
Okay.
until all of the B's and C's are repaired. If the seal around the luggage bay door is secured, but the seal can be seen when looking at the outside of a closed door, is it a no or a failure? And again, this has a couple of caveats there. Usually we would put a note on it. If there's any way, and luggage bays are usually sealed all the way around and they're self-contained. The only issue would be if there was a way for the intrusion to go into the interior passenger compartment, which through a luggage bay, it should not do that. So it would be a no onto the MC300. If a bus is overdue for a brake inspection, PM, or an oil change when the paperwork is being inspected, does it count against our record? All of the maintenance, the brake inspections, PM forms, DVIRs have a 5300 code associated, depending on what the issue is, what defect is noted there. The 5300 codes do not count onto your profile. So if you're overdue for the brake inspection or the PM, you'll get a 5300 code indicating what's wrong with the records. But again, that does not count on the profile as a failure. Any questions on that one?
And that doesn't matter. Say your rating is low. You have a really low DOT rating. Is it affected then? Would it go
No.
against?
No,
Okay, so
no,
it doesn't
but
matter.
as a caveat, and there's always caveats to all of this, if your profile is low enough, our MCIs, which are the motor carrier investigators, will come out and do a review of the operator. If you have a lot of PMs overdue, they will actually put that into their report, and the final determination all hinges on the whole picture, failure of inspections, not doing PMs. So that would be brought up as a corrective action on what had to be to make the operator better. What, to address the concerns.
Okay.
And then Jeff, if you don't mind, I'm just going to pop in for a second.
Yes.
Excuse me. So, it does have some mitigating factor. I mean, if you've consistently had showing through your operator profile, where you're not, where you're running into those maintenance defects, if you do have an audit, or if you do wind up having that kind of MCI involvement, those items are going to be looked at, and you may be asked, well, why didn't, it appears that this has been ongoing for a while. how come these haven't been addressed, and so forth. So although they don't create any defect or issue in themselves, they can be mitigating factors should your operations get into a little bit of trouble down the road.
Absolutely. The next question, how big does a hole have to be in a seat to be a failure? Is it an A, B, C, or a note? In our inspection guidance manual, which is available on our website, we allow a hole up to 1.75 inches can be repaired. So they're asking how big the hole, if it's over 1.75 square inches, you should be replacing the seat cover. But we do allow up to 1.75 inches, or when metal can be detected. As we know, some of the students cut the seat cover and they'll take the foam out and now there's metal exposed. So that would be a B defect, 1902 B defect.
Okay, so if you saw, say we're looking to bus over before an inspection, just came off the road, and a kid put a hole in the seat, and we just grabbed some seat tape. Say they cut it. Say it was a hair, and before the inspection, we grabbed the seat tape and put a piece of seat tape over it. Is that sufficient for that inspection?
If the total length of the hole is over 1.75 inches, we would give it a B defect, even if it had the seat tape on it.
Okay.
Yes. And as we have seen with inspectors, we'll see seat covers that have seat tape all the way across the top and down the side because the students do keep cutting them, and they put a new cover on today and it's cut tomorrow. But during the inspection, if it's over that criteria, we will write a B on it.
Okay.
Next one is, if a garbage can is not secured, is it a failure? So this can be a little bit subjective, but we do have a regulation 721.4 that deals with the passenger section must be kept clean, sanitary conditions, aisles not blocked. And also it talks about baggage, freight, and other property should not interfere with passenger seating space, and it cannot be loose. So a garbage can just sitting in the corner of the bus should be secured. And we would probably put a note on it. Usually we see the plastic garbage cans, and they'll cut one in half and they'll set the second one in with Velcro on the bottom just to secure it in place. Lately, we haven't seen metal ones any longer. We used to see a lot of metal garbage cans on there, which is a little bit more concern. During a rollover event, they could become projectiles or just floating around the passenger compartment. So first, the inspector should talk to the operator about it and then discuss ways to mitigate it. The next one has to do with hand sanitizers. Are we going to have them removed? And currently, no, we are not. As we all remember, this was put in place during the executive order during COVID, where we allowed hand sanitizer to be in the passenger compartment. It could be mounted. We have no intentions of having them removed. But again, if someone above us in legal or downtown says that we have to remove them, we'll issue an order to remove them. But we have no intention of doing that. We haven't had any issues with dripping on the floors or fires, and that was a big concern up front. So at this point, we have no, we're not going to mandate removing them. Next one, can the inspector fail a bus for a windshield wiper that leaves a streak on the windshield? Under our defect codes 1301, for wipers, during 5 passes of the wiper, if it leaves streaks, it's a B defect. So it's not a failure, but you still get a B and you have to address the situation.
If your if your rating was low, that would be an out of service.
That is correct. Yes. And that caveat I put on there about the B's and C privileges, that applies to any of the B's or C's throughout the defect codes.
Okay.
So basically, if your profile is low enough, any defect is going to be out of service.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
Also wondering if they're asking on the streak, if that's when the wiper blade gets damaged and the metal digs into the windshield. Is that what they're meaning by a streak, or are they meaning like a rubber?
Yeah,
burn?
the questions, yeah, the question's open-ended. It just says leaves a streak on the windshield. So, and you're right, if there's metal of the actual blade digging into the glass, that's going to be into a glass defect, and if it obscures vision, it could be a failure. But I just read it into as a streak on the windshield.
Okay.
Good, that's a good point, Bill.
Yeah, because it comes up quite often when people run the wipers and the windshield's dry.
Sure.
The metal starts digging into the windshield itself.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and then like over the winter time when the drivers loses a wiper or it comes off and they still operate it and the arm puts a scratch on the windshield, we have to replace the windshield then, correct?
Yes. If the glass has scratches into it due to either the wiper or some other object hitting it, yes, you'd have to replace the windshield.
Okay, but while we're on the topic of glass, that's just for the windshield. Like if there are scratches on the side windows, that's okay, correct?
Correct. If it's behind the driver, yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yes. The next question, can an inspector fail a bus if there's oil on the exterior of the engine, but no leak is found? So actually we have 2 different criteria for leaks and in the engine compartment. The one that this is asking, there's no leak found, but there's a buildup of contamination or fluids, debris on the engine itself in the engine compartment. Under 4705 for cleanliness of the engine. This is in the engine section. Any abnormal accumulations of fluids or debris which may cause fire or release of toxic fumes would be a failure. So if your engines just have a lot of buildup of just oil that was maybe blow by, or there was an oil leak prior and it's been fixed, we could fail the bus under 4705 just for a buildup of the oil. The next one, can an inspector fail or note a bus for oil being on the outside of the front hubcap if the oil is coming from the vent hole in the plug? And for 2704, for any oil leaks on a hub, that would be a failure. And the last question before I take other questions, and then Chad will chime in. But if a window in a bus is hazy, but you can still see through it, is it a failure? So some of this is going to be a little subjective, but any glass, viewable glass for the driver, which would be the front windshields, right and left of the driver, including the entrance door, or the first window in the right side first seat. Sometimes we see storm windows, storm glass, and the seals break and they build up condensation inside them. If those windows are hazy, it could be a failure under 2203. So I don't know if that answered the question. It says hazy, but you can still see through it. The viewable glass for the driver should be clear. And that's why they have the AS1 markings for that driver's area, front windshield and side windows.
Yeah, I know that we have replaced quite a few of them when they'll be white. You know, you can't
Yes.
see through them. There's,
Yeah.
you know, it was hard to see through them. But I think what they're talking about is it's not really bad yet, and so that could be a failure then.
It could be. And again, a little bit subjective on the inspector's part. And I would hope at that point there's conversation going back and forth between the inspector, the operator, and if needed, the supervisor. You know, just for clarification of how bad does it have to be. And we all know once it starts down getting hazy or the seal's broken and you get condensation, it's not going to get better. So, you know, education goes a long ways and discussions. And so say once we look at it and we make a determination that it really doesn't meet the A criteria, but we keep coming back and finding the same thing over and over again, there would have to be further discussion on why actions aren't going to be taken. Any
All right.
other questions?
I did have somebody ask another question on
Yes.
back to the seat covers. If so, you have a hole of 1.75 inches. What if there's a bunch of pencil stabs, like small, little, you know, like a pencil? Kid, you know,
Right,
put
right.
a bunch of holes in there. Is that a failure?
It's hard to see without seeing it. Hopefully the inspector would work with you to see what it is and go from there. If there's no metal detected underneath it, that'll be a gray area. So yes, I don't have a really good answer for how big do you give an area that has small impacts. So that's a very hard question. Uh, I would go more of the metal if you're hitting metal, things of that sort on it.
Yeah, I get the metal and stuff, but it's just some districts, the bus is on a run and then it comes in for DOT and they inspected it the day before and some kid
Yes.
put a bunch of pen holes in it, but they're all minute, you
Right,
know.
right. And I would hope that the operator and the inspector actually discuss that, what really happened at that time. And again, all of you guys do your pre-trip, you know, your pre-trips, you do your inspection the day before just to go over it. Things happen that morning. So communication goes a long way, education and communication. Any other questions, concerns? Okay, Chad, I'll let you take it away on accident reporting and also the appeals.
Perfect. I know many of you, Chad Smith here from New York State DOT. I'm one of only two managers now, Jeff being the field operation manager, and I'm the manager handling the office affairs. We did have Jim Leonard, who's one of the other managers, just recently retired. So if you know Jim, he's happily retired, and at some point we'll be having another manager here in the office, but at this point it's just going to be Jeff and I. Steve Farina has also moved on from our bureau, so some of the shortages that we have in staff in regards to inspection has also occurred here in the main office, but we're at this point we're keeping on top of things. But we have brought on Nick Berard from our office as well to assist as one of our technical staff, and he's been doing an amazing job so far. So you may be seeing Nick's name in emails, or if you contact our unit, he may be helping you out as well. So one of the questions that came up was in regards to accident reporting. As Jeff went over, there were some new regulations that were put out specifically in regards to accident reporting. Surprisingly, there was only two updates to that regulation. The first was that we changed that a reportable accident needs to be reported to New York State DOT within 12 hours versus immediately. Jeff mentioned that immediately is ambiguous. And the thing is that we were getting some entities that were not reporting them 2, 3, 4, 5 days later. Very difficult to hold the entities to the fire in regards to getting us the information we needed for accident reporting. So the timeline was put on it as a part of the regulation change at 12 hours. And that's 12 hours from the occurrence of the accident. The other change to the regulation was to include disabling damage. Now, commercial motor vehicles are required to keep a record and maintain information in regards to any vehicle that suffers disabling damage where the vehicle itself has to be towed away from the scene. This harmonizes our requirements with the commercial motor vehicle requirements and includes the reporting aspect of it, that it needs to be reported to New York State DOT as well. And those were the two only changes to that regulation. However, it's caused a little bit of confusion, and so it doesn't surprise me that we got a question on it. So it's good to go over what the requirements are and when you need to report them. So I'm just going to bring up the regulations themselves. So the reporting regulations for accidents is in our 17 New York Codes Rules Regulation 722. So for every operator that has vehicles are inspected to us, there were
Chad,
yes.
your screen is very small, at least on my side.
Oh.
I don't know if everyone can see it.
Okay. Let's see if I can do something with this. Is that better?
Much better.
Ah, perfect. Never let it be said that I don't have some skills with a computer. All right, so reportable accidents. This particular regulation applies to all vehicles that are inspected by us. If it's got a diamond on it, it falls subject to the reportable accident items. So any accident in any way involving a motor vehicle subject to department inspection, which results in the loss of life, number one, or injury of any passenger, number two, which was caused by mechanical failure, number three, shall be reported to the department no later than 12 hours from the time of the incident occurred by telephone or electronically to passenger safety at dot.ny.gov. In addition to this part, the following reportable accidents fall within this purview. So you've got any fatality, any injury, any mechanical breakdown, and then you're going to see here in part B where it basically says any mechanical failure, but the rest of these, with the exception of the disabling damage, are not new. Evidence or intrusion in the body of any carbon monoxide, exhaust fumes, so any fire, smoke, toxic fumes, anything along those lines that emanate from the vehicle or into the interior compartment do need to be reported. And the last part is the disabling damage caused by an accident such that the motor vehicle must be transported from the scene by a tow truck or another motor vehicle. So a fatality, number one, an injury of any person relative to the accident, a mechanical failure, any smoke, noxious fumes, or any other types of evidence of fire or toxic fumes. And then the fifth one would be the disabling damage. Now, we've already had questions, in regards to this. Is this the school bus gotten in an accident and the only vehicle that was towed was the other vehicle involved? If they rear-ended the school bus and they needed to be towed, do I need to report it? The disabling damage only applies to the vehicle that is part of the inspection, so the school bus itself. So if you're involved in an accident and the other vehicle gets towed away, there's no injuries, anything like that, it's not a reportable accident.
But if the person in the car was injured, then we have to report it, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So the other item that we put out here was we attempted to put out some clarifications. We've done this previously in a lot of our meetings with the public and so forth, but what is the mechanical failure? We pushed out in a document sent to the operator that mechanical failure is generally considered an item that a breakdown of the vehicle where the vehicle can't continue its trip. That surprisingly caused a lot of confusion and so forth, and it's very simple. Is the vehicle broken down along the roadway where the vehicle can't continue its trip? You have to call a rescue bus, and the vehicle can't continue that trip. For some reason, there was a lot of confusion and a lot of questions in regards to that. The other part is that the regulations that were updated also included the reference that these accidents need to be reported within 12 hours. And we pushed out a letter to the industry in 2020, which gave the instructions for that. If anybody needs this, I can send this to Dan as well. And I'll try to at least pull that up here as well. So where previously we had operators report to regional offices, any accident reported via telephone must now be made to the department's statewide transportation information and coordination center, STIC. And then also you can also report it to the STIC at the email address or by fax. And please disregard or cease using any other reporting forms used previously. We also do have a reportable accident form. All of these are on our website, but I'll also send them out to Dan as well, so that you can provide all the information that we would need. Basically, we need the name and location of the incident, the vehicle or bus number, date and time, driver's name and date of birth, driver ID number, location, number of injuries, number of fatalities, mechanical failure, disabling damage, was there any media present at the scene, who's the investigating police agency, name of person reporting, phone number, date and time of the incident, and brief description of what occurred. So just looking at some questions that we've received, if you only have partial information based upon what you have out there and you want to make sure you get the reporting requirement met, fill out what you have. If you don't have anything, it's okay too. Fill out what you have on this form or give our STIC a call with what you have. That way, at least you've fulfilled the requirements for the reporting requirements of it. And then, we'll be in touch, especially if it's anything more of a significant nature accident or crash. So Any questions on the accident reporting?
What is your policy for following up with the operator after he files a report?
So normally you might not get any response whatsoever, because normally you report it to the stick, it gets forwarded on to all the staff that are required. Unless we have any need for it, we're not going to reach out any further. And usually we wouldn't reach out any further unless there's a significant incident where we may have to do follow-up, or you may get a call from the bus inspector who, depending on the incident, may need to do a post-crash. But also you need to make sure that in addition to reporting it, you don't use the vehicle until it's cleared by the New York State DOT bus inspector or their supervisor.
Is there any way we could look at making a policy that says you call me back in 24 hours or 36 hours, that you at least received my stick report and you acknowledge my information?
I mean, we can look into that. What is the concern that there's not a receipt process in regards to
Yes, I filed a couple of them and I don't know what to do. Sorry, Bill. Sorry, Mr. Severi, but I don't know what to do. I got one with a flat tire that sat here for 5 days. Do I put a new tire on, or do you want me to hold the bus till you look at it? I don't know. And I'm not sitting in the
that's
office.
what I told you when you called me.
Yes.
When you said you had a flat tire, I was like, change the tire.
Yes,
Mm.
but I
said if
waited
you-
5 days.
Yeah, I
Please
know.
realize we're not sitting in the office all the time either. We're driving school buses constantly. So I'm having a hard time following up on this, but I'm not knocking you, Bill, but I just would like to know if there's a follow-up procedure. I had one that burned an AC compressor clutch out and I had to tow it. Do I just go ahead and fix it and put the bus back on? Or, it'd be nice to know within 24 hours, yeah, it's okay to fix the bus, or nope, we're coming down.
So if there are consistent problems where you're reporting it and you're holding it in lieu and keeping it out of service in lieu of clearance from us, that would be something you would definitely want to start elevating, because our staff should be responsive to that. Now, I get it. If you've got a bus that goes down on Friday afternoon involved in an accident, our staff may or may not be able to get out to do a post crash on it. And depending on the circumstance, you may have to hold that bus up, especially if we have any concerns about there being some sort of mechanical item that we need to document either for NHTSA or for otherwise. So I can almost get the fact that our staff not necessarily being responsive on the weekend, but you should be able to get to somebody within 24 hours. And if you're not being able to get a clearance, you should be able to at least get an answer. Hey, you're going to need to hold the vehicle up. But if not, you may need to elevate that through the supervisors. And much like the appeals process, you may, if you're not happy with how the supervisor is handling those issues, I wish you would bring that to us after speaking about it with the supervisor, of course.
All right, Mr. Smith, thank you for your time. Appreciate your answer, sir. Sorry, Mr. Bill.
No problem. So, any other questions about the reportable accident requirements?
Yeah, John Hazelton.
Yeah, Chad, on that new letter that came out months ago, and where it said clarification needed, and because you have to call the call center, I can give you a couple scenarios. If we have a bus at one of the schools, and let's say they left the key on too long and drained the battery down when it's 30 below out, we have other buses that are there. So another driver will say, "Hey, take my bus," and then I'll wait for the mechanics to come over and jumpstart or whatever. Now, in the language, it says they did not finish their assigned route in their assigned bus. So they just switch buses. We do that all the time. We go from a big bus to a small bus due to the route concerns and shortage of drivers. they'll switch buses at school. So technically, they're not finished their assigned route with their assigned bus. So I have to call every day we swap a bus.
No, so that's actually going to be more relative to a breakdown. Yeah, did you have a breakdown where the employee left the power switch on and the battery is dead? Yeah, but the thing is that it hadn't already started the assigned route. You know, it also was in your parking lot. It hadn't gone anywhere. The passengers weren't sitting on the side of the roadside. You know, where the intention on that clarification was specific to, it had to be a mechanical breakdown during the trip, and that during the trip you're unable to complete the rest of the trip, and that that at least some portion of it, we wanted to capture the instances where passengers may be on the side of the road, there's a mechanical defect. And let's face it, we have these things that happen all the time. But if there's a consistent problem where there's some sort of mechanical defect that's constantly occurring, whether it be with one type of vehicle or others, we want to be able to capture that so we don't have passengers getting stranded on the side of the road.
Right, because we do a 3-tier on some of our high school, middle school, elementary. So they're in the middle of the route. They did the high school run. Now they're at the middle school, and I can give you different scenarios. And the bus doesn't start. Well, they just switch buses real quick. We go over, the bus was in drive, not neutral. Something ridiculous like that. Should I be calling on that? Because they had to switch buses technically in the middle of their run. Granted, they're at a middle school, but they didn't finish in the assigned route according to the language.
Yeah. And in those, I mean, according to that, I mean, how often is this happening?
Not every day, but they hit the one emergency switch for the door, not the other emergency switch. So they call in and say the doors don't work. Entry doors don't work. Well, they didn't hit the other emergency switch. I'm just giving different examples that happened over the years, especially with these new EV buses. When your computer gets a little brain cramp, you reboot your computer or restart your computer. Well, these EV buses are the same thing. All of a sudden, there's nothing there, nobody home. You go over there, turn the key on off a couple times, boom, bus works. You rebooted the computer pretty much. We have the dealer look at it. They scan it. There's nothing in the system, nothing in the memory. It's a computer. So the more these EV buses come on, they just get a brain cramp. And when they do it, it's on or it's off. It's not a mechanical failure. It's a computer failure.
Yeah.
And there's no fix for it. You turn the key off, you wait 10 minutes and turn it back on like your home computer, and then magically it works again.
Yeah.
And these are just different scenarios we've had in the parking lots in the past, not on the side of the road yet. But I wanted clarification on that, because I'll be calling. I asked the girl at the call center and she didn't have an answer. So I'll be talking to you every day, with the amount of buses we have here.
Absolutely. And that's part of the thing, but surprisingly, the change makes you think that there's going to be that many more accidents to be reported. And we haven't found it to be increased. It has increased, but it hasn't increased by as much as we thought it could potentially have increased by. The other part too is, I think, and we would need to take this back, but I think if you're sitting there in a school parking lot and the vehicle is broken down and it's where you're about ready to pick up the students, I'm not sure that would fall under the fact that there's an issue with a mechanical breakdown where it would need to be reported as such. Jeff, do you have any aspect on that whatsoever?
No, I agree. The attention of the mechanical breakdown in today's world, with everyone having cell phones and they're taking videos, the students are calling the parents and they're on the side of the road and this is what's going on. Once it reaches to us, if we have some of the information that we can draw off from, it takes some of these concerns and knocks it right away. And like I said, just like when we were all in kindergarten, you start a conversation is the color is blue, and by the time you get to the end of the line, it's gained a lot of momentum, and the color is now pink, orange, and red. So we don't have the full story. So some of the mechanical breakdowns, and I'm going way off the rail here, but the mechanical breakdown with the bus sitting on the side of the road, that's what we need to know. Because law enforcement's involved, they're going to send us reports. That's where the whole thing is going, and also tracking, just like Chad was saying, if there's I see buses, Bluebird, Thomas, and they're all starting to have some of the same breakdowns. Why is this happening? Is there a defect of a particular part of that bus? That's what we're monitoring.
All right. Any other questions on that?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. The last thing I wanted to go over here was we have an appeals process. So one of the question was, how do I appeal a defect? And just wanted to go over this real quick. I know we're diving into some things here, but and I don't mind taking a little extra time just to go over these things, make sure everybody has a good understanding of them. So this is the appeal process is available on our DOT website, and describes specifically what needs to happen if there's a disagreement in regards to your inspector just cited a defect. You don't believe that it's a defect, and what happens in that scenario. So you'll see in our appeal of an out of service determination guidelines that specifically it goes right to step 1, which is supervisor review. I would like to point out that good communication and talking with your inspector is actually the initial step. So you should have the ability to sit there and talk with your inspector and talk about these things and have that type of ask questions. One of the things that I found interesting is that almost every one of our inspectors actually enjoys the idea of educating. If you ask the inspector a question, sometimes it's not even related to the inspection process. They have a knowledge level that they like to share. I get it that some people and some operators are concerned about, well, I should never question my inspector. Well, as long as as long as it's about education and you can kind of paint it that way, you can dial into that inspector's knowledge and education, and make it a truly beneficial moment for each other through your interaction with your inspector. I know it's not always the case, but the thing is that I do know our staff by far. One of the things through talking with them, I like to educate. So make your interactions with your inspector one where you're inquiring, maybe not always in a confrontational way, but have conversations with your inspector. That's the first level, and that often 90% of the time can keep you from needing to have to go through an appeals process. Having candid conversations, where is this in the regulation? Can you show me so I know, so I can understand this in the future type thing. So that I wanted to put out there before we even went over the rest of the appeal process. But going over this appeal process, so once you're at a deadlock with your inspector, the inspector believes that this is an A, you believe that it's not an A. You've taken a look at the regulations, the requirements, and you disagree, and there's no resolution in sight. So this appeals process is specific to only A defects and out of service defects. Questions concerning non-out of service defects, B's and C's, should be directed to the inspector or the inspector's supervisor for clarification or possible informal for review. So if it's a B or C that you don't agree with, you can still consult with your inspector, consult with the supervisor, and if necessary, the supervisor can escalate it. But this appeal process is only specifically centered around failing defects, those defects that would impact your out of service rating. So step one, supervisor review. So after speaking with the inspector, there's no way to get it resolved. The operator shall immediately notify the inspector that there is a disagreement. So the inspector has to know. We just don't want everything escalated to the supervisor without the inspector knowing what's going on. The inspector shall clearly explain the basis for the out of service determination. The condition relates to the out of service criteria. They should be able to, our inspector should be able to clearly point to the out of service criteria or any policy, procedure, or guidance that has been put out in regards to that, and be able to explain the reason for the defect. Then, if the operator decides that the inspector's explanation is not sufficient, the operator shall have 3 business days from the date of the inspection to contact the inspector's supervisor in writing, preferably via email, in order for the supervisor to review the matter and seek further explanation. It is the operator's responsibility to set forth clear and concise reasoning as to why the inspector cited the defect was an error. And then if after his discussion with the supervisor, the matter cannot be resolved, the operator may request an on-site review. So the first thing is contact the supervisor, identify as an appeal, provide a written explanation of the appeal. If the supervisor weighs in on a determination that you still believe to be erroneous, or upon mutual agreement with the supervisor, you can request an on-site review. If you do request an on-site review, the request needs to be in writing. The operator shall make arrangements to have the vehicle available in order to allow the supervisor to conduct an on-site review within 3 business days from the first business day of the written on-site review request. The component in question shall not be touched on or worked in any way until the supervisor concludes the on-site review. So there is the caveat here that if you are going to appeal something, you need to hold the defect for us so we can review it. That's important to know. Upon the appeal process to the supervisor will provide a determination writing within 5 business days from the first business day that the supervisor received the written challenge by the operator, if no on-site review is requested, and then 5 days after the on-site review if an on-site review is requested. In both cases, if a decision is not made within timeframes indicated above, the defect shall be removed. If the supervisor determines the defect was written in error, the appropriate changes will be made to the MC300. And then that appeal is forwarded to our main office to document that the appeal was actually filed. If you're not happy with the supervisor's determination, the operator is then eligible to take advantage of step 2, main office appeal. And the operator shall submit an appeal to the main office by using the designated email link on the New York State DOT website for passenger safety within 10 business days from the date of the supervisor's decision. And we would also set it in writing. I would recommend by email. It's quicker and better tracked. Again, in writing, you need to indicate full, complete information on what the concern is. the appeal shall be reviewed by the main office managers and recommendations shall be presented to the director in order to make a final determination. The director's decision on that is final. And then, of course, if the appeal is upheld, the defect shall be removed. If the defect is denied, then the defect will be maintained and the out of service for that vehicle will be continued on that MC300. So, any questions on the appeal process? All right. I do have some information I'm going to be sending to Dan. I did include a link to our website regarding accidents. I'll also include on our website the information for the appeals process. And if you have any questions, certainly reach out to your inspector and the inspector supervisor if necessary. And if you don't get any satisfaction there, you can certainly reach out to the main office. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody have any questions to ask DOT?
Dan, I just want to note that all of this information, as far as the appeals, the inspection procedure manual, that's all on our bus website, NewYorkStateDOT.com or New York State DOT, and then go to the bus icon.
Okay. Okay. Well, I want to thank you guys, Jeff and Chad, for your presentation. It was very informative. Does anybody have anything else? Any questions for DOT while we're all here? Not seeing any. If you come up with any, please let me know, and we'll make sure that your questions are answered. I'm sure we'll put it out to the group so everybody can get the knowledge from it. So again, thank you guys for your presentation. It was very informative. July 16th and 17th. July 17th is going to be the summer seminar at the On Center in Syracuse. July 16th will be setup. July 16th, there will be training from, let's see if we got the times here. Training on the 16th will be 9:30 a.m. to 2. I think we have Leonard. It's going to be, they have air brakes, operation and troubleshooting, collision mitigation, air disc brake maintenance and replacement, and next gen IC features and updates. Bluebird is going to have product updates and improvements. They're going to have a session focusing on the Ford 7.3 liter powertrain, gasoline engine. Hendrickson will be air tech, soft tech. This is all suspension. And they're also going to have O2 Cool AC. They're going to be going over AC systems, electrical systems, thermodynamics, all kinds of stuff. I know that they sent out their information. Everybody should have this. So again, take advantage of that. You know, I think they want you to, I know Leonard's is by 7/1/25. They want to know who's going to be going. So it is good training during the 17th, which is the day of the trade show. We're going to have Petro Canada is going to present on lubricants, and we've got Goodyear, what Jeff Corey was speaking about earlier. Remember, we had that presentation, and things have moved along since then. Goodyear is going to have a presentation on tires and EV. So the differences since then that things are moving along. As they said, we're getting 40% less tread life between the tires, or between the buses with the same tires. So That should be interesting, but that's going to be on the 17th. We are working on a DOT training day, and it's not finalized yet, so I'm waiting on approval from the school here. But we're looking at August 27th. But as we get going forward with that, I will let everyone know. Our steering committee, we're going to meet and set up the training topics for the next school year. If you have anything that you want covered, please let me know so we can put the training together. And I know this meeting was a little long, but a lot of good information. Does anybody have anything to add to today's meeting? Anything at all? Not seeing any. I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting, and I'll be in touch about the training day, and I will see everyone in Syracuse. All right, we'll see you guys later.
Thank you, everyone.